Good evening, everyone. Now we are going to begin. First of all, let me extend a warm welcome to all of you who have joined me here for this session, which is on IELTS speaking by Leverage IELTS, powered by Leverage Edu. My name is V. Kritika Krishna. I am one of the IELTS experts here at Leverage IELTS. And today we are going to look into this segment called Speaking of IELTS, where I hope that you guys might already be aware that it is an English language proficiency test taken for your education abroad or for the purpose of immigration. And this would have these four skills: listening, reading, writing, speaking, where speaking is the part which I consider to be one of the most interesting ones as well. So before we get started, may I know from you guys, from the participants who have joined, if any one of you has taken the test before or has booked the exam? If you have booked it, let me also know when you're going to take it. Is it anytime sooner? Maybe in a week, 10 days, maybe next month? Not yet. Okay. All right. All right. And anybody else who may have booked the exam or just planning, haven't decided yet? If so, let me know through the chat box. So my purpose was asking this was to apprise you of the fact that the speaking test of IELTS can happen any day before or after the main examination, that is listening, reading, writing. So whichever date of the examination, if anyone has booked, let's say we are taking the 11th May as our examination day. So a speaking test can be held either before 11th May or even after 11th May, and in certain cases, even on the 11th May. Oh, all right, Madhuri, thank you for letting me know. So, Saturday, just a few more days. All the best. I hope the session is going to help you today. So, this speaking test, let's first quickly have an overview to the test, and then we'll get into the to its different parts and the tips. First, it's going to be a one-to-one test and a test where you're going to have a face-to-face interview with an examiner. And this test, the duration will be nearly 11 to 14 minutes, nothing more, nothing less. So it's kind of the shortest part of the entire segment. If we take listening, reading, writing, and then speaking, this is going to be the shortest of all. uh, could be slightly intimidating because you have an examiner sitting and assessing you, but it is one of the interesting parts of the test. Now, the whole test, which is in 11 to 14 minutes, it's divided in three parts, guys. So we call them part one, two, three. When you're going to meet the examiner and start with the test, they're not going to tell you, okay, I'm giving you part one or two or three. It happens like a conversation. So this entire test is actually a conversation all about you, and the questions are majorly personal questions. Yes, a few general ones will be there. We'll get acquainted to it, but they are mostly personal question, which means it's all about you, and that means it is going to be easy to answer in certain questions that you get. So now let's look at what are these three parts, how in 11-14 minutes are they going to divide it, what questions can they possibly ask, what are some of the recent questions, which I think, Madhuri, this is going to help you because you have your exam on Saturday. Let me also tell you that questions that have been asked before, you never know they'll come again. So mostly questions get repeated. So you should be aware of what has been asked so far. But then anything can be asked. By anything, I mean anything. So you cannot just prepare with a few questions and feel, okay, I'm done. This is what they'll ask. They can ask you anything because it's about you and your life. So let's start with part one. Now, when you'll go to the exam center, you're going to carry your passport with you. And the first few questions would be to check your identity, and then it just starts. The examiner introduces himself, tells you that he's going to conduct this exam, and your entire speech gets recorded. So, when he's going to start with that first part, the questions are going to be pretty basic. First three, which you can expect surely, would be: may I know your full name? Where are you from? Are you a student or do you work? So, where you're from, what your occupation is, your full name, that surely will be asked. And then what? Now he is going to ask you a lot of questions which would be based on any kind of familiar theme pertaining to your life. There are many themes which could be about your likes, dislikes, where you live, what you do, about your friends, about your family, about the food that you like to eat, and many more. Now, in this part, there's something that I want you to keep in mind. If you have a pen and paper handy, please, you can feel free to take notes. Number one, the questions are going to be pretty basic. That doesn't mean that, okay, it's a basic question, so I can get done with a short answer. They are expecting you to give an answer, but it should not be a very limited answer. By that, I mean to say, do not give answer anywhere throughout the test, especially part one when we talk about. Do not give answers in few words. Your answer should always be framed in sentences, one or two. Even, for instance, let's say basic question like, where are you from? And I answer, Delhi, New Delhi, India. So it's better to give a full sentence. I belong to New Delhi, India. I am from New Delhi, India. What's your full name? My name is B. Kritika Krishna, and please feel free to call me by my first name, Kritika. So this way, you're just telling your examiner that you're comfortable using English language, and not restricting yourself with just few words. So please keep in mind, because most questions of part one, they can be kind of, a few questions can be kind of close ended, which may begin with do you, have you, would you. So there is a possibility that I can simply say yes and my answer is done, or I can simply say no and my answer is done. So never do that. Answer in complete sentences. Next, feel free to speak your mind. So there is no good or bad answer. There is no right or wrong answer. All answers are valid because we all are different. So there can be multiple questions that can come. Just keep in mind, when the question is asked, what kind of verbs are being used? Is it question about your present, past, or future? Because most likely in the first part, you could experience questions which are about your routine life. But yes, there can be one or two which could be connecting you to your past moments, or maybe predicting what you may do in the future. So I'll take a very interesting example of a recent question. Please pay attention. Now, this question is about boring things. So one of the questions that one of our students also got was asking him that what are the kind of things that bore you? What are the kind of things that bore you? So anything that comes to your mind, guys, put it in the chat box. I'm sure that a couple of things would come in your mind. And in the exam, you don't have to come up with an answer which is extraordinary. There could be anything that can bore you. That could be a particular TV program, or maybe if you are students, listening to a particular lecture from any one of your professors could also be a boring thing. Or maybe talking to one of your friends who who keeps talking about something which is irrelevant or not quite interesting could also bore you. So it can be any answer. But the point is, just don't say my physics lecture, this particular TV program. You have to frame it in a sentence. So this is one of the questions that we got in the test. Or let's say it can be connecting to the past. For instance, what has been the most boring thing that you did in your childhood? Or let's say when you were young? Anything can come. So this is now taking you to the past. So ensure that your answer is being delivered also in the past tense. Maybe if you have never done anything boring, your life has been super happening, that's absolutely fine. Your answer could be, I have never experienced anything like that at all. As far as my memory goes, I have always had an interesting life with a lot of interesting chapters and episodes. That could also be an answer. But if you can vividly remember something, you can mention that. So see, I'm giving you both type of answers, where the answer could be something that really happened or something that you never experienced. Speak your mind. Whatever strikes you here at that moment, just give that answer. Or let's take another example related to boring things, which could be, what would you do if you feel bored? Now, this is asking you, in certain circumstances, if such a situation arises, what would you do? So please take a note of those verbs which are coming here, because are they talking about your actions that you do in routine, about the past or the future? Most frequent questions would be connecting to our present, but yes, a few can be related to past and future. So we must pay attention. And all our answers should be in the form of sentences, know few words. Am I making it clear? Please type a yes if you're able to understand. And with that, let me share some more questions. So there has been a question on advertisements. Now you may feel this is nothing concerning my life. How could this be a basic question? So hear me out. It could be, do you watch a lot of advertisements? Where do you watch it? On TV or on internet? Do you talk about advertisements with people? Do you buy products when you watch an advertisement? You see, all my questions are do you, right? So it is about ads, but it's not asking you to talk about a particular ad. It's simply asking you, do you watch advertisements? Where do you watch it? When do you watch it? Do you even purchase things based on an advertisements? So this also has been some of the recent questions that came. Or even about accessories, you can get questions like a watch. Do you wear a watch? Have you ever got watch as a gift? On what occasions do you wear a watch? Or do you prefer buying where do you prefer buying watches from? These kind of questions can also be there. So some questions you will find pretty easy to answer, and some can sometimes surprise you that why is he even asking me about watches. But remember, all the questions that are being asked, they're already set for the candidates. So don't think that the examiner is trying to ask you a question based on your answer. It's already been set, and the examiner ought to ask each of those which is there on his questionnaire. So when it comes to part 1, be clear, be confident, be comfortable in what you're saying. And a tip for those people who are aspiring to get a 7 plus, especially for this particular part of the speaking test, that tip would be to avoid giving your answer in